Why Your Defensive Line Sucks in College Football 25. This is a continuation of our video series where we're going over every single archetype for each position in the game to see why they're not progressing, which ones are the best archetypes, and how you want to construct your team to make it the best possible. And we'll be starting right away with the first archetype, which is the run stopper. So we're going to go over both defensive ends and defensive tackles, but for the run stopper positions, they're pretty much the same between defensive ends and D tackles. There's really not a significant difference, and we'll just get right into it with the first archetype, which is the run stopper archetype. Now, these are the same for both defensive ends and defensive tackles. Some of the other archetypes do have some pretty significant differences, which I will go over in this video, but you have to stay tuned for that. But for the run stoppers, these guys excel in block shedding, tackling, pursuit, play recognition, and hit power. And as far as archetype specific abilities, run stoppers get both inside and outside disruptor, which helps with ultimate shedding ability on inside runs for inside disruptor and on outside runs for outside disruptor. Looking at the progression for run stoppers, first off, if you want a little bit more information, you could definitely go check out the first video in this series where I go over quarterbacks. I go a lot more in depth with the way the game works for progression and how the game decides what is going to be upgraded next, so you can find out why your players don't seem to be ever progressing and why they suck. But just to kind of sum it up a little bit in this current video, it basically has to do with the amount of skill points that it costs to be able to upgrade one of their abilities. But for run stoppers, they actually have a pretty good upgrade path because just quickness and finesse moves are the only two things that are kind of terrible. Because finesse moves, it already costs 6 skill points and we're only upgraded twice. And quickness is already up to 10, so these two are really never going to upgrade most likely on these guys. But that's fine because they can end up kind of more or less turning into a run-stopping power rusher, which is a nice hybrid to have. But one thing that's interesting to note though is there is one distinction between the defensive ends and the D tackles for run stoppers is in this power tier. So in the power tier for defensive ends like Landon Jackson, he only upgrades his strength, hit power, and injury. And it's a pretty fast upgrade with only 5 skill points to get to the 7th upgrade. But then if we look over here at the defensive tackle who's a run stopper, you look in the power grade and they actually can upgrade their toughness as well. But now it's going to cost, looks like 13 to max it out, which was way more expensive than the power tier is for the defensive end run stoppers. Also, the power moves are super expensive for defensive tackles who are run stoppers compared to how fast it is for defensive ends. Finesse moves are slow and quickness. So really only IQ and run stopping are the only two things that upgrade fast for the defensive tackles. So it almost seems better to move them to a defensive end and they'll upgrade considerably faster and then just play them at D tackle. And if you guys have had any benefit at all from this video so far, I would appreciate it if you guys would hit that sub button because it really helps the channel out, helps find more people who are just like you who are trying to get better at college football, and helps to add to the community. But next up we'll be talking about the power rushers, and there's actually quite a bit of distinction between the multiple different types of power rushers. First off, from a scouting perspective, there's regular power rushers, and then there's athletic power rushers. And then these power rushers can be defensive ends or defensive tackles as well. These guys excel in power moves, awareness, and strength. And then the athletic power rushers are a little bit better in pursuit and strength than the non-athletic power rushers. Oddly enough, there are no archetype-specific abilities that power rushers get that can't be shared with another archetype. So we'll just go right to the way that they upgrade. And it's actually quite well. The only thing that they're really not great in is, again, finesse moves, which makes sense, and then also quickness. So again, just a speed type person, it's really important if you want to have fast defensive linemen to make sure that you scout and recruit and commit fast defensive linemen, because the way that they upgrade, it's probably not going to be their speed anytime soon. And kind of the same thing here with power rushers is that they can kind of become a hybrid of a power rusher and a run stopper, because finesse moves are just really hard to come by from both the run stoppers and from the power rushers. Lastly, we'll be going over the speed rushers, and these guys are also super fun to use. These guys excel in speed, acceleration, agility, and finesse moves. They have one archetype specific ability, which is quick jump, which is one of the best abilities in the entire game. This one gives them an ultimate jump off the snap when pass rushing. And if you guys wait until my linebacker video comes out, there's going to be some really interesting tactics that I've been finding out from doing more research on these videos. And it could be a really dynamic defense. Now, there is one thing to note here for speed rushers, is that defensive ends and defensive tackles are very different in the way that they upgrade. It's kind of somewhat similar to the run stopper defensive ends and defensive tackles. Whereas this is a defensive end, Abdul Carter. His upgrade tiers are great. He upgrades his finesse moves fast, his power moves fast. So this is one of the only guys that can be a combo of both a finesse and power rusher, which is just the most pure form of pass rusher. His power can upgrade well, his IQ upgrades well, even run stopping upgrades well. So this man can be an absolute well-rounded animal. The only thing that's slow is the quickness upgrade. So again, finding someone with a fast, just baseline speed for their freshman season coming in as a new recruit, and this would be a solid choice for you to choose a speed rusher. But all speed rushers are not built the same. If we look at D tackles, though, they are significantly different. Defensive tackles do not get quick jump like how the edge rushers do. Defensive tackles also take forever to upgrade. Their finesse moves can upgrade well, but their power moves are slow. Their power upgrade is slow. IQ is fast. Run stopping is slow, and quickness is slow. So 4 out of the 6 upgrades are slow. This is one of the worst upgrades in the entire game. So speed rushing D-tackle, not the move. Again, kind of the same with run stoppers for defensive tackle. Probably better suited moving them to the defensive end and then just physically changing them in your depth chart to move them to D-tackle so that they can play and upgrade a little bit faster than they would if you played them in their natural home position as a defensive tackle. But I have a lot more of the higher level thinking moves that we have with moving players around into different positions so that they upgrade just a little bit better than they would in their native position. So we'll have plenty more of that to come in the next couple of videos where I'm going to be going over linebackers and safeties and really all the defensive backs just to kind of round out the rest of the position groups. You definitely don't want to miss it. So, but until then, why don't you check out one of these videos?